Shalom in the name of Yahuwah and His Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Pray that Yahuwah gives you His shalom and His peace, and pray that everyone is in complete peace in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. His video is a combination of different things here. It's a combination of being not deceived. It's really one thing. It's really being not deceived in these last days. And the thing is, we see everything that's happening around us. We watch the news, and yet we fall for the news, and yet we don't realize that the news is controlled by the media, by these elitists. And we'll go a little bit in detail. And I may do another video about, because the Ruach has me researching about the synagogue of Hasatan, Satan. And, you know, we have to recognize, and we may go a little bit detailed. I'm just gonna speak as the Ruach directs me to speak. So this is really about the last days. We know for a fact that we're living in the last days. You know, looking at the news, even a lot of us are falling for the news. You know, famines, earthquakes, things along those lines. But those are just physical things. You know, the things that we have to really question are the spiritual things. And, you know, what I'm going to say is probably going to easily be misinterpreted by a lot of you guys that are going to be watching this video. It's probably, you're probably going to misunderstand what I'm going to say and get offended. And you know what? That's fine. You know, I'm not here to make anybody happy. Again, I'm not any teacher. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not a pastor. I'm none of these things. You know, I'm just like everybody else. You know, and that's the important thing. And you know, a little bit about myself. I mean, my testimony. A little bit about myself. You know, my mom was Jewish. My dad was Catholic. And I wasn't raised in any kind of religion, although I did lean more towards the Jewish side, because my mom was the one that kind of raised me not to forget who I was and who I am. And of course, y'all, if you see my previous videos, I've done videos about identity crisis and the fact that Yahuwah is the one who makes up our identity, because at the end of the day, He all created us in the image of Himself. You know, we are created in the image of Yahuwah. You know, and it seems like we tend to forget that. It seems like we're all divided up, but yet you look at all the major three world religions, they all come from the same source. They all come from Abraham. But again, we're not about religion. We're about a covenant relationship. You know, just like the covenant relationship that you know, Yahuwah had with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob, and just the layers of the covenant. It's one covenant, but there's layers upon it to fulfill the promise that Yahuwah, you know, gave to our forefathers, Israel. You know, the Hebrews, because we are Hebrews. We've crossed over from Babylon and have become Hebrews like Abraham. And I do suggest, and I know a lot of you may not agree with me, but I do suggest reading the book of Jasher and reading about Abraham, because Abraham's experience is very much like our own experience, especially those that have come out of religion. And maybe in the future I'll do some reading. Maybe I'll do a readings from Jasher. You know, if you know, Yahuwah, y'all willing. You know, it's up to Him. It's not really up to me. But you know, I'm just to cut to the chase. So, my mom being Jewish, you know, I was raised to love the Jewish state of Israel. Pray for the Jewish people. I was taught about the Holocaust. I was taught about, you know, the feast, but not from a scriptural perspective, but just from a secular Jewish perspective. And I learned through the years, and I'm learning now, you know, even more as more often as I keep the feast of Yahuwah. You know, even had an opportunity to visit the land of Israel and spent 2 weeks over there and saw the land. And It felt like home, but it felt like there was more to come. It felt like it's like, yes, I'm in the land, great, but there's something missing. Yahuwah. Yahuwah was missing because it was a land that was very secular. People were very secular, and the fact that it was extreme religion everywhere you went, in every corner. And of course, again, we're not about religion here. We're about having a covenant relationship with our Creator. And Yahushua HaMashiach is that mediator. We have a relationship to our Abba, our Father. So, again, what I'm going to get at here is may it be offensive to some. And I expect that to happen. But we have to remember that Yahuwah is the one that makes up our identity. And yet a lot of us are focused on the wrong things. We think that because we're born in a certain country, or if we have some type of lineage or some type of bloodline today, that's what makes us who we are. And yet scriptures speak otherwise. And I'm going to share this scripture again in Ephesians chapter 2. In Ephesians chapter 2, and I think I read this scripture in the last video, but I feel like I have to really kind of drill this in a bit. And it's kind of like what Yahuwah did with the children of Israel, how he just drilled it in, kept repeating the same Torah. And that's how the Ruach works. It's drilled into us because we are people that forget things, even to the point that we forgot our Elohim. That's why the northern tribes of Israel were scattered, and yet we still forget our Elohim by calling them by false names. But let me get too sidetracked here. So I'm going to start in verse 1, actually. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1. And you has he made alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which in times past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now operates in toil-breaking children. We know the spirit of the air is Hasatan, among whom also we all used to have our conduct in times past in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of our flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as were others. But Yahuwah, who is rich in favor, for his great love through which he loved us, even we were dead in our sins, has made us alive together with Mashiach. By a merited favor you are saved. Not by works, by a merited favor. And has raised us up together and made us sit together in the heavenly places in Mashiach Yahushua, that in the world to come he might show the exceeding riches of his unmerited favor and favor towards us through Mashiach Yahushua. For by merited favor you are saved. Not of yourselves. It is a gift of Yahuwah. Not bar mitzvah, lest any man should boast. Now, actually not the right scripture I was looking for, but actually it is. I'm sorry. The Ruach is really directing me here. For we are his masterpiece, recreated in Mashiach Yahushua to good works, which Yahuwah has ordained beforehand that we should perform as our way. Therefore remember that you being in times past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called the uncircumcision by those called the circumcised in flesh made by hands, at that time you were without Mashiach, being excluded aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, as strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without Eloah in the world. But now in Mashiach Yahushua, you who sometimes were far off are made near by the blood of Mashiach. For he is our peace, who has made both Echad, or one, and has broken down the middle wall of partition between us, having abolished his flesh, the enmity, even the law of commandments, contained in human dogma, for him to make himself from the two one renewed man, so making shalom, and that he might reconcile both to Yahuwah in one body by the execution sake, having slain the enmity through it, and came and proclaimed shalom to you who are far off, and to them who are near. For through him we both have access by one Ruach to Abba, to our Father. Now therefore you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the Israelite, Kedoshim, or the set apart ones, forming the household of Yahuwah, Beit Israel, the house of Israel. The house of Israel is built upon the foundation of the emissaries and the prophets, Yahushua HaMashiach being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the house being joined together grows into a kadosh, Beit HaMikdash, or temple, dwelling place, in Yahuwah, in whom you also are being built together as the Beit HaMikdash of Eloah through the Ruach. I think important verse that we really need to examine here, and again, this is just proof that it's the Mashiach who makes up our identity, and yet it seems like we're still in the flesh. And let's go back to verse 15 here, or actually let me go back to verse 14. For he is our shalom, who has made both echad, and has broken down the middle wall partition between us. Talking about us, meaning, as far as the Yehudim who were dwelling in the land at the time. Remember that the northern 10 tribes of Israel, they were never returned back to the land. Only Yehuda did, which is where we get the Jews from. We'll go further into that later here. For he is our shalom, who has made both echad, or one, and has broken down the middle wall partition between us, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in human dogma. When we talk about human dogma, we're talking about religion. We're talking about man-made religion. And you all may not agree with me, but I believe the Hasatan is the inventor of all religion. And the Hasatan, he doesn't just lie, he twists. He's half-truth. We see that when he is deceiving Ava, or Eve, where he says, did Elohim really say that that you are not to eat, that you shall not want to eat this fruit in the midst of the garden? Did he really say that? It doesn't go to mind. Did he really say that we should be going Torah? And yet, even today, it's prevalent. It's relevant that he says, did he really say that? That the Torah, that Yahushua said he did not come to abolish the Torah? Did he really say that? So that's a question that pops in our mind. So what am I getting at? Well, what I'm getting at here is the fact that I know there's a lot of you guys that are pro-Israel, that are pro-Zionist, and the thing is, I had to do some research some years ago, 2 years ago actually. I did this research, and I know that Yahuwah was directing me to do this because I had to find out the real history, the things that were happening behind the scenes. And why was there a Holocaust? Why is it all this division? Years ago, when I started getting into this walk, I asked myself a question. I said, if the Christians and the Jews worship the same God, the same God, of course we don't use God anymore because it's the name of a pagan deity of fortune. Read Isaiah 65:11. But Elohim, we're going to use Elohim actually. That's his title, Elohim. Why is it that they hate each other so much? Why is there so much hatred? And it's something that a lot of us don't really sit back and ask. Why is it that there's so much anti-Semitism out there? Why is there so much racism out there? Why do we have so much hatred for one another? What about loving our neighbor? What about loving Yahuwah with all our hearts and loving our neighbor as ourselves? What about the Samaritan that took the parable that Yahushua gave, that the Samaritan that was attacked on the way, and of course we know Samaritans are mixed people. They're mixed people of the northern 10 tribes that were mixed. The Jews, the Yehudim, hated them because they were not complete Hebrews. Racism there. What happened to that? Why is it that we have so many different religions and so many different denominations? Why is it that we all just can't get along? And why is it that in the book of Thessalonians, and I'm actually going to turn there right now. I actually read this the other day, and it kind of made me think a bit here. About what's going to be happening in these last days. About the deception that we're all going through. Because for those of you that support Zionism and that support a people that hate you so much, that feel like they're the superior race, because let me tell you something, people. Everybody feels as if they're something. Everybody feels as if they're a superior race. And I'm not trying to bring racism into here, but I'm trying to equate this in scripture here. And I'm going to try not to cry here, because this is really hard for me to get out, because it's hard. But yet it's a reality that we're living in. A lot of us are being deceived by the spirit of anti-Messiah, because guess what's going to happen? You see all that hatred across the world. You see all the dysfunctionality. You see all these terrorist groups, Hamas and all this. Guess what? It's all being orchestrated by these elitists, the Rothschilds, who call themselves Jews, but they are not Jews. They are of the synagogue of Ha-Satan. Revelation chapter 3. Rothschild means red shield. And you can trace their genealogy back, and they're not Jews, they're Edomites. These elitist folks, have sold their souls to the devil, folks. And yet our hearts are so messed up to the point that we forget what Shaul says. Shaul says that a Jew is one inwardly. A Yahudi is one inwardly. A Jew is one inwardly. It's not the guys with the black hats and the black suits. It's not the guy in the IDF uniform. Because what did we just read here in Ephesians chapter 2? In chapter 2, we read that Yahushua has made us one. That those strangers are no longer strangers, but they are part of the Commonwealth of Israel, the renewed Commonwealth of Israel. And yet we're so caught up with what's going on in the news. We're so caught up about what's going on in this country. And again, it is good to be aware of what's going on, but we should not be deceived by what these people are feeding us. And yet, what we read here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. For these times and seasons, Israelite brothers, you have no need that I write to you, for you know perfectly that the day of Yahuwah comes as a thief in the night. For when they say Shalom ve'baktan, or peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a woman in labor, and they shall not escape. But you Israelite brothers are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. You are all the children of the light and the children of the day. We are not of the night or the darkness. We cannot partake in darkness. We cannot give into what this anti-Messiah spirit, the spirit of deception is giving us. And we're falling for it. You know, I saw a video the other day about a protest in New York between, you know, the Palestinian people and the Jew and the Zionist people, and yet there's so much hatred. Should not be hating on each other, people. We should. It's not the people. We should be hating on the spirit of religion and praying that these people break free of the spirit of religion. And yet we can't even get our hearts straightened to the point that we can't even discern what's right or wrong. Because a lot of you are saying, oh, well, Torah's done away with. And there's some of y'all that are picking and choosing. Because according to the Torah, Yahuwah's Torah, and not these Hasidic rabbinical Jews, we're not to oppress one another. We're to love one another. Welcome one another in. And yet we're doing the complete opposite. And yet this dysfunction that you're seeing beforehand, it's all orchestrated to make you fall for the trick. To ask for peace. But let me ask you all a question here. What peace are you praying for? Because there's going to be a false peace. There's going to be a third world war. And there's going to be a false peace. What peace are you praying for? See, even Yahushua, in Matthew chapter 24, we're going to go there. And Yahushua went out and departed from the Beit HaMikdash, or the temple, and his Talmudim came to him and to show him the buildings of the Beit HaMikdash. And Yahushua said to them, do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another, it shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon Mount of Olives, the Talmudim came to him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of your coming, and the end of this age? And Yahushua answered and said to them, take heed that no man deceive you. No man. That includes your Illuminati-controlled news and your sources. It says, no man deceive you. And yet, a lot of you are being deceived, and you're all being angry because of what's going on. Because this whole thing is being orchestrated by these leaders. You don't even know what you're supporting over there. Because according to scriptures, it's the Mashiach that returns us to the land. And yet, these elitists' plan is to create a secular Jewish state. Did you know that the Zionist movement is? It is a secular movement. And you look out there, most Jews do not like what's going on. They don't like the hatred. They don't like this war that's going on over there. And yet these elitists are creating this hatred for one another to give into the war so that they can have their false peace and build their third temple so that their Messiah, which is the anti-Messiah, may dwell in there. That's what everything's leading up to. And yet we're so discombobulated. We've lost our identity. We lost our way through Yahuwah's word in his Torah that we don't even know what a real Jew is. We can't even recognize. We can't even recognize who's in the truth. We can't recognize it. We don't know what's right or wrong, and yet Yahuwah's allowing these delusions to happen here because of our punishment. He says in the book of Hosea that because you reject knowledge, I reject you. He's giving us into these delusions here, folks, because we're so stubborn at heart. And yet we say that we're this or we're that. We think that we're all that. We think we have it right. You think you have it right because you're saying the name Yahuwah correctly? Because you're keeping the right calendar? Because you're keeping Shabbat? You examine your heart. Because what's everything's happening saying that, you know what, you better be prepared because all hell is about to break loose. And just pray that these people, that the whole world does come to salvation to Yahushua. Because if not, they're going to fall for the anti-Messiah whether they like it or not. Verse 5, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and shall deceive many. Well, let me tell you something. You know, I put an emphasis on calling upon the true name of Yahushua, and there's a reason why, folks. We have to look back at the golden calf incident. The children of Israel saw Yahuwah's esteem on Mount Sinai. Matter of fact, the commands were given on Mount Sinai, the Torah. It was a reintroduction because Torah has been around since day one because Yahushua is a Torah. So everything, all the universe, the whole earth is created based on Torah. Moshe was gone for a while. So they decided, hey, you know what? Moshe is gone. What do we do? Oh, let's make ourselves an idol. And say, this is your Elohim that brought you out of Egypt. And look what happened. Years later, you know, we had Shavuot, which was really a confirmation of a renewed covenant, the Torah being written in our hearts of the Ruach HaKodesh. And people are getting immersed in the name of Yahushua because it is commanded that we be immersed in the name of Yahushua. And years later, certain people that were joining in the covenant didn't like the name of Yahushua. They didn't like the fact that they had to keep Torah and keep these feasts. They still wanted to be a heathen. So they changed his name. And with his name, it changed his character. Now, it's interesting here that we say first, many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and shall deceive many. We know that name means a character. We know that a name means character. It's in the character of. But what happens if you change that name? How do you know whose character it's in if you know that's in if you change the name, if you change the appearance, if you change the teaching that this Mashiach, this Messiah. Because we know that Yahushua is the living Torah in the flesh. We know that he taught Torah and he established it even more. And we're more accountable because he showed us the favor of Torah. Because he is Torah. And Torah does save us because he became that sacrifice. And it's because of our obedience. It's because we love him that we obey him. Because according to John, 1 John, sin is a transgression of the Torah. It's not salvation by works, it's our belief. If you believe in something, you're going to go after it. Belief and obedience go hand in hand. So in the Torah it says that if anything needs to be true, we need 2 or 3 witnesses. Those are your true witnesses there when it comes to our walk with Yahushua. It's our emunah, it's our belief, and it's our obedience. Abraham believed in Yahuwah, and because he believed in Yahuwah, he obeyed Yahuwah, and that's what made him righteous. So, these false messiahs are going to come and they're going to say that, hey, I'm the Messiah. And yet, we believe that any miracle that happens, it's of Yahuwah. We don't question it. These many hen crusades and these people that say that they can heal. And yet we are so dumbed down that if we see any miracle that happens, we believe it. But yet we don't go back to the foundation. We don't go back to the root of it and find out where it comes from. Just like we don't go back to the root and find out why did the Holocaust happen? Why did it happen? And why? Why is it that we have this situation in the Middle East? Now, I'm not saying that the people there in Israel, in the land of Israel, are not Jews, because I do believe a lot of them are Yahudim. I'm not giving it to any conspiracy and all that, but I'm saying that we have to research where Zionism comes from, the secular point of view of Zionism. Let me tell you something. It has its root in Satanism. Why is it that there's so much racism and divisions? Because these elitists are trying to divide us. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get all three world religions to kill one another, to bring in their false peace and say, see, look, we have to get rid of all these religions, all these belief systems, and kill all the troublemakers, and bring about our peace and bring about our Messiah, because that's when the false Messiahs can appear. And you're going to be so emotionally confused and distraught and exhausted because of your anger towards one thing, when your anger should be the zealous anger about the things that are not right in the eyes of Yahuwah. Because of the Ruach HaKodesh, we have the mind of Mashiach. We should be angry at the things that Mashiach was angry at, just like how he was angry at the money changers. These elitists are pretty much equivalent to these money changers that were in the temple when Yahushua came in his Talmudim or Pesach. And yet what we're doing is we're giving into their deception. We're giving into their deception because we don't have our heart matters right, because we don't know what to be angry about. And then some of us, we're afraid to be angry. We are to be angry about the zeal. We are called to be ambassadors of Mashiach. And yet we're even divided about same-sex marriage. We're divided about what party of government we follow. We're divided about whether we should support, the state of Israel or not. We're divided about wars and pestilences, and you know what? We're being divided amongst the wrong things, folks. I'm telling you. Are we to pray for the peace of Jerusalem? Absolutely. But the peace that we should be praying for is true peace of Yahushua HaMashiach. And yet, these people, I feel bad for these people because so much innocent blood was shed in the Holocaust. It was shed because of these elitists. And yet they're giving into the deception. And yet they're being, and yet these elitists, these Satan worshippers are funding both sides and turning each side against each other to get what they want. Now, I don't know if you all watch Star Wars, and maybe this is a bad analogy, but in the new Star Wars film, Emperor Palpatine, Senator Palpatine, who was Darth Sidious, funded the Clone Wars, and guess what? He was on both sides. And look what happened on those both sides. He funded it, and in the war, he got what he wanted, which was his emperor. Folks, that's what's going to happen here. Both sides are going to be funded. There's going to be a third world war that is going to completely exhaust everyone out. And it's going to be to the point that people are going to be crying for peace. They're going to be crying for peace no matter what the cost. And then that's when the anti-Messiah is going to make his appearing and say, I have the answer. And because you all don't know the name of Yahushua, because guess what? I think this guy is going to come in the name of all false names. Yeshua, Jesus, the Mahdi, Isa, which is what the Muslims call him. Every world religion is waiting for a Messiah type person to appear. Even the Christians are waiting for Jesus, and the Jews are waiting for, in the Jewish religion, they're waiting for their Messiah. And yet it's sad that, you can't even enter the land, even make Aliyah on the land, even though some people can. In order to enter that, you have to, for the most part, you have to deny Yahushua. You change the name, you change the character. And what I found out is that, the Jesus that people worship is a Messiah that teaches you lawlessness. He teaches you Torahlessness and says, you know what, feasts are done away with. You're under favor. Do whatever you want. Just go to church and you're saved. That's deception. And then you got Yeshua, which most people, and of course I don't believe Yeshua is a proper name, because Yeshua is an acronym, may he be blotted out. And yet, in the Jewish religion, they're so afraid of pronouncing the name of Yahuwah that they have to use their Masoretics. And of course, these Masoretic people is what really messed up our Hebrew language. Because Yahuwah, and then Shua, salvation or saves. Maybe we'll do a basic teaching on the names in the future, which I'm thinking about doing. They teach a Messiah that is rabbinical, that is Pharisaic, and I do believe that the Mashiach, Yahushua, he was from the tribe of Yehuda, from Judah, but I don't believe he is of the Jewish religion. There's a lot of people out there, especially in the Messianic movement, that think he was a Pharisee because he taught very similarly. I don't think that at all. We're not going to try to justify anything, because the fact that we're not allowing the creator of the universe, Yahuwah, whose son Yahushua is Yahuwah in the flesh, to, we're not allowing him to be our identity. We're not allowing him to work in our hearts, but we'd rather be identified by our religion, by our country, by our families, when at the end of the day, it's really about him. It's about Yahuwah's kingdom and his kingdom only. And yet we're focused on things of the flesh. Yet we're getting so angry over things that we have no control over. Because at the end of the day, Yahuwah knows what he is, the beginning and the end. And I hate to say it, but we get so angry at these things, but yet we forget that Yahuwah is the one that's in control. He's the beginning and the end. He's the Aleph and the Tav. And yet we're acting as if we can stop what's going to happen. These prophecies have been prophesied thousands of years. Thousands of years they've been prophesied. And they've been waiting to be fulfilled. And they're going to be fulfilled whether you like them or not. There's no stopping. You can't stop what's coming. A lot of people are being deceived. And a lot of people are being deceived thinking that the people that are in Israel, that the Jews are Israel. The Jews are not all Israel. That's just one tribe. And yet even us, we the Jews, and I'm not trying to be, again, as I said in the beginning of this video, you're going to misinterpret what I'm going to say. But a lot of them have this attitude that they're it. We can't have that attitude, folks. We can't. We have to have a humble heart. He wants us to have a humble heart. Yahuwah does. And yet we can't have this pride in us. We have to know what we're supporting. And really what we should be supporting all along, folks, is not a Jewish state that is eventually going to get destroyed in this Third World War. And I have proof in Scripture. Read Ezekiel chapter 36 and 37. Well, actually 38, 39, it says the walls have been destroyed. There's no walls. I think this Third World War is going to really do some damage. And yet, these people are saying never again, never again, never again is this going to happen. Guess what? These people that are funding these atrocities, these wars, these revolutions, they have you saying never again, but guess what? It's going to happen again, and it's going to happen worse. You think the Holocaust was bad? You think the Dark Ages were bad? This is nothing compared to what we're going to be seeing in the future. What right do we have to stop what Yahuwah has prophesied years ago? Because you know what? We're not the judge. Are we stronger than he? there's prophecies that have not been fulfilled, and that's the problem. You know, y'all like, oh well, you believe in the two-house restoration, your replacement theology. Really? Am I? Well, let me ask you a question. When I went into your Messianic Jewish synagogue, I visited it, and I'm just using a general question here. You asked me if I was Jewish. What difference does it make? Because a lot of people out there that are non-Jewish are being treated as if they're second-class citizens because of their Talmudic, rabbinical laws, because they're so stuck in their religion. Because in Yahuwah, we're all one. It doesn't matter. If you're Jew, it doesn't matter if you're Gentile, it doesn't matter if you're Greek, it doesn't matter if you're Cuban, Jamaican, it doesn't matter if you're Indian, it doesn't matter because according to the word of Yahuwah, guess what? You're grafted in. It talks about that in the millennial reign, in the millennial temple. Yehuwah. And yet we're all so divided about our religion, about our races, hating one another. We shouldn't be hating one another. We should be hating the evil that's around us. We should be hating the spirit of anti-Messiah. And we should be praying against that. Yeah, that's what we should be praying for. And giving us more time so that the truth may be told. But yet we want to be comfortable. We care more about what other people think about us than we care about what Yahuwah thinks about us. Care more about who's going to be the next president of the United States or whatever than Yahuwah. I don't care who the president of the United States is. I don't care who my senator is. I don't care. My king is Yahushua HaMashiach. The Israel I pray for is the Israel that Yahuwah wants. It's not the Israel that these Satanist, secular Zionists want. They want an anti-Messiah. They want a political figure, third temple anti-Messiah, to reign over them and to rule over the whole world, because they still can't bow down to their knees. They can't even say the name Yahuwah. Hasatan hates that name. Every false name leads to Hasatan. He's a man of many names. God, Lord, Baal. That same spirit that's being deceived here. Yes, Yahuwah winks at ignorance, but guess what? For those of us that know, he hates the fact that we're on the fence. He doesn't want us to be lukewarm. He wants us to be hot or cold. Either in or you're out. That's the bottom line. This is talking about the dividing of the new temple, the millennial temple, in Ezekiel chapter 47. Dividing the land. And of course we see similarity in the book of Joshua, how it's divided based upon lots. But this is where it gets really interesting here. Verse 21, it says, so shall you divide this land for yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that you shall divide it lot by lot for an inheritance for yourselves into the foreigners that sojourn among you, because those foreigners will become Israel, which shall beget children among you, and they shall be to you as one born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that in whatever tribe that stranger sojourns, there shall you give him his inheritance, says the Master Yahuwah. So it's not just one tribe. It's not just the Jewish tribe. It's all the tribes of Israel. Plus those that have, the strangers that have grafted themselves in and say, Yahuwah, he is Elohim. Yahushua, he is a Melech. He is the king of the earth. You don't want to sit back and say, oh, we're the chosen people. Yahuwah chooses his people. Yahuwah knows who his people are. And yet these same people that were so close say, oh, we got to pray for these people, are the same people that want you dead. They say, oh, you're a Gentile, you can't keep Shabbat. You can't keep the feast. You can't keep Torah. You got to be Jewish. You got to abide. Oh, well, even if you're Jewish, guess what? You're not quite Jewish. You're a Gentile Jew. And you got to adhere to our Noahide laws. Really? Really? Show me. Where is that written? It's written in your Talmud? Really? Moshe came down with 2 Torahs? Really? This is what spirit of religion does, folks. This is what the anti-Messiah does. The same spirit, Muslims. Oh, you got to be a Muslim you got to be a Muslim or you die. The Catholic Church telling people that you convert to our religion or you die. What right do we have to kill people because of not the following? Because that person has a choice. Because there's only one judge, and that is Yahuwah. Ain't no Pope. Ain't no Muhammad. Ain't there's no high priest. Only Yahuwah is that judge. And yet you get all these religions against each other, and yet you're all saying, oh, we're on this side, we're on that side. Did Yahushua ever say, oh, well, you need to rebel against these Romans. These Romans aren't treating you guys well. No, he didn't say it. He said, give to Yahuwah what belongs to Yahuwah, and to Caesars what belongs to Caesars. Because guess what? For our punishment and our disobedience, that's what we got. Being ruled under these empires because of our disobedience. So you need to get out of the religion shell and search these matters out. Exodus chapter 12. It's right after when they kept the Pesach. Chapter 12, verse 49. One Torah shall be for him that is native, and for the stranger that sojourns among you. One Torah. Ain't no Noahide laws, and yet a lot of y'all that are falling for this deception of the anti-Messiah, this anti-Messiah spirit that's amongst us, you're supporting people that say, oh, you know what? You're just a Gentile. You can't call upon the name of Yahuwah, or you'll get your head cut off. You can't keep Shabbat. It's only for us Jews. But yet right here, when all the 12 tribes of Israel, as well as a mixed multitude, Yahuwah himself says, one Torah shall be for him that is native, and for the stranger that sojourns among you, because they are part of Israel. You know, you want to bring this race card. You want to fall for this anti-Messiah race card that we're to hate, that we're to hate one another because of the color of our skin. What denomination we are. We're so divided. We are so messed up because we have heart problems. Because we're so worried about whether we're voting for Democrat or Republican. We're so worried about whether the state of Israel is going to be destroyed or not. Let Yahuwah decide that. Because he's a judge. You just pray for the salvation they come to truth so that not a lot of people are killed. Because only a remnant will be saved. Because not all of Israel is Israel. You have to remember Romans chapter 11. Those who are in disbelief were grafted out. They were grafted out of that olive tree. And those that came to Mashiach that believe in Yahushua were grafted in. Yahuwah is not a favor of anybody whatsoever. He chooses each and every one of us. Everyone has an opportunity. Everyone. That was the purpose of the nation of Israel. Was to be a light to the nations. Was to provide the Torah. To be a light. And they even failed at that because they wanted to be like all the nations and do the mixed worship. And because of the mixed worship, they were scattered all across the earth. Because of their disobedience. Because of their paganism. And what do you see in that land today? Paganism, steeples, homosexuality, demonic Kabbalah religion. Deuteronomy chapter 30. I'm sorry for being angry, but I have to be really firm at this. It shall come to pass when all these things have come upon you, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before you, and ye shall call them to mind among all the nations, where Yahuwah your Elohim has driven. So we are among all the nations. All of us among all the nations still. And shall return to Yahuwah your Elohim, obey his voice according to all that I command you this day. You and your children with all your heart and with all your being. That then Yahuwah your Elohim will turn your captivity and have compassion upon you, and gather you from all the nations where Yahuwah your Elohim has scattered you. Yahuwah himself will bring you back to the land, folks. The resurrection, the promise of the Mashiach, the second coming is resurrection. It's restoration. And we haven't seen that purely yet, because it's quite obvious that the people that are in that land right now have not completely repented. It's a secular state. So who's behind it? Who's behind it? So does that mean that, okay, Yahuwah scattered his people because of disobedience, and yet he brought them back even though they were still disobedient? Does that make any sense? But yet you're all falling for it. Because you all think that, oh, when all hell breaks loose, I'm going to be raptured out of here. It's not a rapture. Aliyah means to go up. What are we going to go up with Mashiach? For those of us, the bride, who are in the wilderness, when Mashiach returns, he's going to gather us. We're going to come back with him. And then there's going to be a resurrection. And we're going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth. And then it's going to be the millennial reign. It's called Jacob's trouble because we are Jacob. We are Israel. And there's only going to be it's only going to be the 144,000 folks that are going to be in that wilderness, the bride. All the rest of the people are, for those that are holding their belief, they're going to be beheaded. They're going to have to run for their lives. Because it's testing to see who's really in this and who is not. That's the test. We're in the wilderness and we're being tested. And Yahuwah has brought about these false prophets in the synagogue of Hasatan among us to test us, to see where we lie. Who is our allegiance to? Is our allegiance to the coming new world, the renewed heaven and a new earth? Or is it the things of this world where we think, oh, well, we know what, we got to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, but yet, what peace are you praying for? See, we're so messed up. We don't know. We have such an identity crisis. We don't even have our eschatology straight. It's always been about Israel. There's no church. That's a lie. There's no such thing as a church. There's the ecclesia, which is the called out ones. And Yahuwah your Elohim will put all these curses upon your enemies, and on them that hate you, who persecute you. And you shall make teshuvah and obey the voice of Yahuwah, and do all his mitzvot, his commandments, which I command you this day. Let me ask you a question. How many people in that land are obeying his commands? Are they obeying the commands of Yahuwah, or are they obeying religion? Man-made commands. I'm not judging those people over there. I'm not. I love them all. I love all people. I don't hate anybody. I love everyone, but I hate the spirit of religion, what does to people, because that's what messes people up. But yet we think because someone practices a different religion or a certain sin or that, we're going to automatically hate them. Really. Yahuwah loves all his people. All of them. He wants them all to be saved. There's no one particular race of people. Read the Talmud. Read about what it says about the Gentiles. It's racism. It's just as bad as what the Quran says about the Muslims say to everybody else. It's not their religion. It's that same spirit of anti-Messiah. The thief whose Hasatan is dividing us and hating us. He's creating this disorder, which Yahuwah is allowing because of our delusions and our disobedience. Heaven and earth right now, as we speak, is witnessing against our disobedience, because the heavens and earth were created out of Torah physics. We're being deceived, folks. We're being deceived. A lot of y'all are being caught up in this deception. A lot of y'all are getting on these political stances. When at the end of the day, you should say, what do I need to do to be a light so that these people will say, hey, yeah, you know what? We love you guys. It doesn't matter what color. Oh, but we got to favor the Jews just because. Really? It does say to the Yehudi first, yeah, because Yahuwah is true to his covenant. So basically, a person that's Jewish, that's not believing in Yahushua, we treat them a lot more special than somebody that doesn't. But yet it says one Torah to the native and to the stranger. Everybody gets a chance. I'm not talking replacement theology. What am I implying here? I'm implying that Yahushua makes us Israel. When we're grafted in, that's Israel. That's the true commonwealth of Israel. It's not religion. Religion doesn't make you. The country you're born doesn't make you. See, we got to get rid of that. That's all the flesh. That's why we get mikvah. We die to ourselves to live to Yahuwah. That's why we must get mikvah in the name of Yahushua. Matthew, actually, we're going to go to Matthew chapter 24. Actually, not 24, but the end, 28. I'm sorry. Let me see. 27. Chapter 27, actually 28, verse. I'm all over the place today. Verse 19. Actually, we're going to start at verse 18. And Yahushua came and spoke to them, saying, all power is given to me in the Shamayim, in the heavens, in the earth. Go therefore and make Talmudim, disciples of all nations, doing immersions or mikvah in my name, in Yahushua's name, teaching them to guard all things which I commanded you, and see, I am with you always, even until the end of this world. Yamin. That's why we get mikvah, folks. It's to die to ourselves to live to Him. And for those of you that are being in these political stances about, oh, we got to support this and that, we're Democrat, Republican, you know, have you died to yourself? Who's your identity? Who's your Abba? Who's your Father? We're to die to ourselves to live to Yahuwah. That's what the mikvah is about. It's about death and resurrection. You know, Shaul says it plainly in 1 Corinthians. He says that, you know, all things have passed away and everything is new. And yet we're still focusing on things of the flesh. We're so worried. We're so paranoid. We live in a world that is just nothing but paranoid. I mean, I work customer service and I hear people being paranoid all the time because they're afraid that something's not going to work out. There's that fear in them. You know, most companies are paranoid because they're so worried about their numbers. Folks, we can't be worried. We can't be paranoid. Matter of fact, we're to be excited because Yahushua is returning. First, the anti-Messiah is going to make his appearance. That's our test. You know, and I pray for my brethren out there that, you know, a lot of you guys do make it out to that a lot of you are called out to be in the wilderness and protected while all hell breaks loose. But there's going to be a lot of us that are going to die and get beheaded. You know, our government's ordered tons and tons of guillotines. They have FEMA camps all across the country. Who do you think that's for? Because at the end of the day, guess what? When these religions, it's World War III, and these religions are destroying one another, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and yet, when this false peace comes, guess who's going to be blamed? You're going to be blamed. They're going to come after you and say, we can't have people like this. These people are heretics. These people are terrorists. We can't have them living in our midst because they're going to disturb our peace. Oh, we have to be ready. What are you praying for? What are you supporting? Do your homework. I suggest look up the Rothschilds. Look up the Balfour Declaration. Look up the Mazzini-Pike Plan. Look up these things. I'm telling you guys. I had a hard time. My whole life I was told to think this way. Oh, you got to support the Jewish state of Israel. Oh, these guys are your brothers. You got to support them. But yet they're being set up. You have no idea. They're being set up over there. They're being set up for a false peace and an anti-Messiah, to the abomination of desolation. They're being set up. You're all being set up. Be careful what you're praying for when you pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So you know what? What peace am I praying for? Am I praying for the peace of whatever it takes to be peace? Because if it's whatever it takes to be peace, you're falling right for the anti-Messiah. When you don't even know it. Or should you be praying for the return of Yahushua and saying, you know what? I want the shalom, which means completeness and authority. Taking back the authority. When Yahushua is reigning from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem, that's the peace you should be praying for. And that's what I mentioned in the last video. Yet we're getting so upset. Guess what, folks? A lot of people are going to die. But you know what? We just pray. Say, yeah, a lot of people are dying. I pray that Yahuwah has favor upon them. But yet, I'm not the judge. Yahuwah is a judge. He decides. It's a shame what has to happen. But Yahuwah has his reasons. And the thing is, he is a creator. He knows everything. There's a reason why these things are done the way they're done. And a lot of it's because of punishment, because of our disbelief. Because the Navi, the prophet that Moshe mentioned, in Devarim chapter 18 has come. It's Yahushua. And he's returning as a king. And he's going to judge. You Christians out there saying, oh, well, Jesus is coming back. Yes, Jesus is coming back. The Jesus that you preach is the peace Jesus, the tolerant Jesus, the hippie Jesus. That's the anti-Messiah, folks. And in the Yeshua that the Messianic Jews are praying for, that's the rabbinical guy. Guess what? Yes, that's an anti-Messiah too, because guess what? He's not Talmudic. He's not Jewish. He's of the tribe of Judah, but he's not the Jewish religion. He didn't do Talmud. He hated it. Making the word of Yahuwah, he told the Pharisees, you're making the word of Yahuwah null and void by adding your traditions. You're so focused on, oh, I got to do this correctly. Why? Because it makes you feel good, because you want to look good on the outside, but yet what are you on the inside? I'm not trying to pick on you guys. I'm trying to have you guys examine your hearts. It's a heart matter. It doesn't matter how long your beard is. It doesn't matter what color your yarmulke, or even though the yarmulke is not scriptural, it doesn't matter how long your zizits are. But you're supposed to wear them. Because Yahushua didn't say, hey, by the way, after I die, I want you to stop wearing zizits. He never said that. Yahushua didn't change anything. He established it even more. Those who have ears, let them hear. Those who have ears, let them hear. I'm not trying to pick on anybody here. I'm trying to get you guys to see that you're being set for a trap. These elitists are the ones that created this state of Israel for their purpose, for their false Messiah, because they believe that their time's at hand. That's why they have you saying, oh, you can't say the name of Yahuwah. Why? We're supposed to praise the name of Yahuwah. We're supposed to honor his name. Call upon his name. We say hallelujah. Supposed to bless his name. Supposed to say Baruch Hashem Yahuwah. Supposed to say Baruch, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Knowing his name, calling upon his name, guarding his name, guarding his feast, his Shabbats, and having a love for one another, not just those who are within the fold, but those who are outside, without judging, because they have no right to judge those who are on the outside. Whether their religion, their race, it doesn't matter. Thinking fleshly. Why do you think you have churches? You have one Baptist church and maybe it's for white folks only, and then you have another Baptist church and for black folks only. Why? And for those of you that are bringing up this anti-Semitic, oh, well, you're being anti-Semitic. I'm not. Show me in Scripture anti-Semitism. It's a term that was made up by these elitists to try and divide us, or trying to get us to hate one another. They want this chaos to happen so that they can create their war, so that they can set up their kingdom, the satanic kingdom, the synagogue of Satan, the abomination of desolation. It's all one thing, folks. I know you all are going to probably put a lot of bad comments in my thing. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, we got to forgive one another. We have to love one another. We're so focused about making one another feel well, getting esteem from one another, when at the end of the day, all the esteem belongs to Yahuwah. And that's the esteem that we should be seeking. What esteem is man? What does it matter how much money I make? You know, Yahushua's Talmudim asked them a very, very interesting question. You know, he says, Master, will you at this time restore again the Malchut, the reign, to Israel? Yahushua said, it is not for you to know the times or the Moedim which Abba, Father, has put in authority. His own authority. But you shall receive power after the Ruach HaKodesh has come upon you. You shall be witnesses to me, both in Jerusalem and in all Yehuda, and Shomron, Samaria, and to the four corners of the earth. Let me ask you a question. How can he set up his kingdom right there and then if people don't even know that they have been saved by the blood of the Lamb? He's giving us time to turn to him, to repent, and to be renewed in him. That's really what verse 7 is saying in verse 8. That's his favor. His patience towards us. The fact that Yahuwah became flesh and dwelt among us. To be with us. To establish a renewed covenant. Not a new covenant, but a renewed covenant. To the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. And to bring them together as one stick. And to be one kingdom. When the Mashiach returns, he's going to gather us into one stick. One kingdom. There ain't going to be no more division. There ain't going to be no more hatred for another. That's why we got to get this heart matter right. Because I'm telling you, if you don't, you're not going to be in that kingdom. You're going to be on the outside. With just weeping and gnashing of teeth. I'm telling you, folks. Seek the things that are above and not below. And yet we're praying for the things below. And we're praying for the Yerushalayim that's above, that makes us free. And that's real tough. On what I said, you know, and you may call me anti-Semitic or whatever. I don't care. I'm not anti anything, folks. I'm all about Yahuwah. I'm about his name, about his feast. I'm about his people that I love very much, and those are on the outside that I pray that they'd be part of the Mishpachah, part of the family. Because the blood of Mashiach is what brings us in, that for those who are near and far off. It's a two-house reference. You know, it is what it is, but we cannot be deceived, folks. And I urge you all to search out these matters that I'm telling you. Be not deceived. Search out what you're really supporting. Because what we should be supporting is Yerushalayim, Yahuwah's city, and our King, Yahushua HaMashiach, who is the right hand of Yahuwah, who will come down and gather his people and reign over them. That will be your 1,000-year millennial reign when he comes back. That is what we should be praying for. That's what we support. Because what we should really be praying for is the fact that the Israel that we should desire is the Israel that Yahuwah desires, because that's Yahushua's reign. Indeed, that's Yahushua's reign. This Israel that you see, guys, it's you know, it's a temporary thing. It's a setup for anti-Messiah to rule and reign over there. Well, he still has a chance. He's testing us. Yahuwah's testing us. Please pray about this matter. Diligently search out these matters. Don't believe everything I say. This is the tip of the iceberg, you know, but I urge you guys to do your research, you know, because I'm not here to teach you guys. I'm here to edify and to encourage. But I'm not a teacher. I don't want any followers. Because what difference is that? What difference is that? What difference does it make me from all the rest? You know, he goes, oh, you got to hear what this pastor said about this or that, or you know, you got to hear this, you know, what this pastor said about this and that. Oh, I think he's great, this and that. But yet, we're what are we doing here? We're esteeming people rather than Yahuwah, because all the esteem belongs to Yahuwah, not to man. Another verse I do want to share before I do go. Verse 5, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5, and I shared this earlier on Facebook. It says, let your behavior be without greed, and be content with such thing as you have. For the Master Yahuwah himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So that we may boldly say, Yahuwah is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do to me. We should be content with what we have. We should be thankful in the fact that Yahuwah has called us and that he became flesh and died for us as Yahushua. That's what we should be thankful for. We shouldn't be greedy. We should help one another out. We should be there for one another, encourage one another. You know, in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8 says, Yahushua HaMashiach, the same yesterday and today and forever. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And yet we're changing his name and his character to prepare us. These churches, these churches are being controlled by the synagogue of Hasatan to confuse you and to lead you to the wrong Messiah. That's why I put the emphasis on his true name and his true character. Because it makes sense, and yet, you know, a lot of us are already worshiping after the image of the beast. You know, it's the J-man, it's the Jesus guy, it's all the false messiahs, it's a false religion that's controlled by this beast system. And yet you're seeing a plethora of these religions returning to the Catholic Church, to the woman, the harlot, which is modern day Babylon. We live in Babylon. Confusion. You know, I just prayed that you really search this matter out. We need to not be focused on the things of the flesh. You have to trust in Yahuwah. We have to get angry about the right things. We have to be zealous about the right things. We have to be in support of one another, the body of Mashiach, because that's where we're going to need one another. And again, I'm not saying not to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, but I'm saying there's a right way and a wrong way. We're so worried about what's going on there in the Middle East. Yahuwah knows what he's doing, folks. It's been prophesied thousands of years. It's been prophesied. It's just being fulfilled in our eyes, in our midst. You know, we shouldn't be focusing about our country, you know, our identity through our nation or bloodline. We should be focusing on our identity in Yahushua HaMashiach, because he's our king. And inviting those in that kingdom. And praying that the people find the truth. So again, this video is be not deceived, the spirit of end time inside, because we are being deceived in divisions of race, of religion. You know, for those of you that are religious, do you know what you're really defending? Do you know what you're supporting? For those of you that are supporting whatever side in the Middle East saga, you know, Israel or Hamas or whatever, do you know what you're supporting? You're being set up for war. You're being set up to give into the spirit of anti-Messiah and this delusion. Can't be deceived by anybody. Test all spirits. Thank you. Shalom.